Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnette. Good to have you with us today. Rain's slowing up a little bit now. Maybe you're driving home from work. Finished with another Monday, wherever you are. Good to have you with us. If you're not listening to us on ESPN 1420 St. Augustine, we can be heard around the world via the Listen Live links on thesocialgambler.com and 1420sports.com. You can also find this station and this show on the TuneIn radio app. So no excuse for missing us. Good to have you with us again. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com, your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. If you're interested in sports news, sports gambling news, free picks, gambling technology news, gambling industry news, it can all be found on thesocialgambler.com. And remember, they're a free app for your smartphone. So be sure to download the Social Gambler. As I said before we went away, we are going to talk some NFL football now. We're going to get into some training camps around the league, most notably the one here in Northeast Florida. Of course, I'm talking about your Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I've tried and failed, I admit. Sometimes I say, I try not to be negative, and then I think, do I really try not to be negative? No, I admit I don't. But where I'm coming from an honest place here. I'm a Jaguar fan. I'm not objective on this matter. I root for the team. I plan on living here in this area for a long time. I hope there's NFL football in this area for decades to come. I think that can only be ensured with winning and Super Bowls. Hey, if the Jags win the next 2 Super Bowls, they aren't going anywhere for a long time. You can write that down. So I hope the Jaguars win. I hope they do well. But my sort of state of irritation with the franchise has lasted for a couple of years now. It really has. The last time I can remember feeling real positive about the Jaguars and the team and the direction in which they were headed was, I guess, the last time they were good a few years ago when they won that playoff game up in Pittsburgh. Maybe it was the 2007 season. Has it been that long ago? When the Taylor-Jones-Drew running back combo was in full swing. The first year Garrard had taken over for Byron Leftwich. I mean, at that point, when they dropped Leftwich in training camp and installed the Garrard as a starter, I was fully behind that move, really excited about the season, and was excited with the results of the season. Since then, my irritation sort of has gotten gradually worse. And how could it not? The team has just devolved into a laughingstock. 5-11 last year, worst offense in the league, unwatchable. And really, my irritation hit a new low, as most of you know who listen to the show on a regular basis, when they extended the architect of this disaster, Gene Smith. He was extended 3 years when Shad Khan took over ownership from Wayne Weaver in the winter, December, November, whenever it was. December, I believe it was. Now, since then, really, there hasn't been much positive to report. I've reported and been happy about the only positive story, the drafting of Justin Blackmon in the first round. Of course, there was a bucket of water quickly thrown on that with his DUI arrest, but aside from that, from Shad Khan's fight with the city to these contract issues, having your best player not in camp, Terrence Knighton outside a nightclub yelling about how he was going to kill everybody, sustaining an eye injury, failure to acquire Tim Tebow, the Josh Scobie contract situation. There's been a lot of stuff going on that just hasn't been real good. The not lowering of the blackout number that like we thought was going to happen. Well, training camp has started, and for 1 or 2 days, there was some positivity floating around. Players saying they love the new locker room. Everybody talking about we're going to focus on the guys who are here, not the guys who are not here. Not wanting to talk about the Jones-Drew holdout, which is the story nationally when you talk about the Jaguars training camp. And of course it is. Your best player not in camp. Well, any optimism that there was over these first couple of days of Jaguar training camp and quickly dissipating. Folks, I hate to be the first to inform you if you haven't heard it by now, and if you're not into Twitter, which I'm sort of just trying to get into, you probably haven't heard it now. The Jags were dismal today. Blaine Gabbert, 1 of 12 passing. 20 passing plays. 12 passes were actually thrown, 1 completion, 8 scrambles/sacks. Mike Mularkey was asked after practice today why the reason for so many scrambles from Blaine Gabbert, something he did not do last year. Mularkey defended him. He says that was because of coaching. He says he's being taught to do that. Mularkey said Gabbert is being taught not to force throws. That's all fine and good. We don't want to see Blaine Gabbert throwing interceptions like the pick 6 he threw in Friday's practice. But telling Blaine Gabbert, a quarterback who, to say he was skittish in the pocket last year is a mild understatement. A quarterback who appears frightened by the prospect of being run over by a defensive end or linebacker. Quarterback who is anything but comfortable in the pocket. To tell this guy to hang on to the ball, don't force throws, what's going to end up happening? This is not a good formula that's developing here. Now, that's not all. But before today's practice, Mike Mularkey, who's been nothing but positive, as he should be, a new coach taking over, only a couple of training camp practices. We're still in July here. But it was being noticed by fans and media alike who, ever since Thursday, blame it on Blaine Gabbert or not. The Jaguars are not completing passes. Now, after yesterday, Mike Mularkey chose not to blame Gabbert, chose to blame the receivers, which he did. Mularkey said, quote, about the receivers, he said, quote, we've got to do a better job. We've got to make more catches. We've had plenty of opportunities to make some catches down the field, and we've got to make them. It's hard to get the ball deep and accurate and catchable and not make them. We need to start doing that. One thing that's come out of the first couple days is we're not making the plays that are there. Mularkey was then asked about Laurent Robinson. Now, Laurent Robinson, of course, the free agent wide receiver the Jags have brought in, given him a 5-year, $32 million deal. He'll be making more money this year than Maurice Jones-Drew, the best player on the team, which no doubt Ertz Jones-Drew, you can bet. Especially considering Laurent Robinson has never been a starter on any team he's ever been on, and he's been on 5 NFL teams. This is a guy who's a journeyman receiver, given a 5-year, $32 million deal, and throughout training camp thus far, he has been dropping passes. Mularkey was asked about all these drops from Laurent Robinson. Mularkey said, quote, he's got to make some plays. Maybe he's pressing. I'm not sure. I know he knows it. He's been around this league a long time, and he knows he's got to make a play. Sometimes you press. When these things are coming out in early July, I know it's early July, and I know this could all turn around. This is not a good start. The optimism and positivity that should surround every team, at least before the first preseason game, is not surrounding the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. Now, that was today that Mularkey was quoted about saying those things about Robinson, so that was before today's practice. Unfortunately, Jaguars fans, if you trust Tanya Ganguly and her Twitter updates, it didn't get much better at today's practice for Laurent Robinson, dropping more balls today. Several more drops today for Laurent Robinson, which no doubt contributed to Blaine Gabbert's 1 for 12 performance. Let me say that again, 1 for 12. If this does not spur some Jaguar fans to come over to my side on this whole Maurice Jones-Drew contract issue, come on, guys. Do you not see the writing on the wall? We are about to be terrible again. Again. It's only late July, and it's already coming into very sharp focus. Go out to one of the practices. I'm going tomorrow. If you're going to go, I'll see you out there. 8:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. open to the public. See for yourself. Folks, it looks like we're going to be terrible again. Our best player, really the only hope we have on offense. We've got to get this guy in camp. And hey, you're right, it would be nice if Maurice Jones-Drew did not hold out. It would be nice if he came here and he said, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to be paid half of what guys like Marshawn Lynch, LaShawn McCoy, D'Angelo Williams are being paid, and 1/3 of what guys like Adrian Peterson, Chris Johnson are being paid. It'd be nice if he said that. It'd be nice if he said, hey, I don't mind, I'll make less money than LaRon Robinson, this journeyman number 3 wide receiver we brought in who can't catch balls so far. It'd be nice if Maurice Jones-Drew did that, was the ultimate good soldier. But you know what? You can't blame him for not doing that, looking at his current situation. And for all those people who say he was, he was giving all the money up front, including his signing bonus, he was paid a total of $21 million over the last 3 seasons. That's $7 million a year. That puts him right there in that upper tier of running backs, right where he should be. That's still way, way less, $5-6 million a year less than Adrian Peterson or Chris Johnson money. And Jones-Drew's outperformed them, leading rusher in the league last year, only running back in the league to rush for 1,300-plus yards for 3 straight years, despite never having a dependable downfield passing attack to take some pressure off of him. So listen, I understand Jaguar fans who think, they wish Maurice Jones-Drew was here. What I don't understand is how are we, and I say we meaning Jaguar fan, how are you letting the organization off the hook for letting it come to this? Are you kidding me? I mean, this guy's the best running back in the league in his prime. He's 27 years old. He's due $4.5 million next year. You're $25 million under the cap. You've got an owner who's been hemorrhaging money. He laughs about the money he spends. He just spent $3 million on a locker room renovation. He's bringing in wide receivers, been on 5 different teams, paying them $6 million a year. You've got a terrible team. I mean, where's the priorities here? Listen, and if you don't think that paying a player who outperforms his contract is the way business is done in the NFL, think again. Open your eyes. Follow the NFL. Why don't you? Every year, just about every team has a situation like this, where a player is not happy with how much they're being paid because they feel they've outperformed their contract. And when it's a situation like this, where it's the face of your franchise and a star who's grossly outperformed this contract, nearly every time this is taken care of. The organization pays him what he's worth, not more than what he's worth. We're not asking, nobody would ask an organization to do something that wasn't good for the organization. But with all the salary cap space, all this amounts to is a couple of million more out of Shad Khan's pocket. He could have used that money for the locker room renovation to pay Jones-Drew, and that's all he'd have been looking for. I guarantee you tell him 7.5 instead of 4.5, he's in camp tomorrow. Yet, no one is, in my mind, seeing the right side on this. Poll on Jacksonville.com, which is the Florida Times Union's website. Poll on Jacksonville.com, 85% of the people said he should be here. Only 13% of the respondents to the poll say they should give him a new contract. Folks, what gives? Why the dislike for the guy who has been the heartbeat of the team for the last 3 years, the only thing you could say positive about the offense? I do not understand how people fail to see this guy is about to be grossly underpaid for the next 2 seasons, and it's not like he was overpaid for the last 3. They didn't pay him Adrian Peterson money. Maurice Jones-Drew has been paid what he's worth. No more. Not a penny more. $7 million a year, that's still less. Still less than Arian Foster, LaShawn McCoy, D'Angelo Williams. Still less than Matt Forte and Ray Rice will be making now. Still less than Steven Jackson's been making. Still less than all of these guys who Jones-Drew's been outperforming. So, Jones-Drew could make an argument, and he'd have stats to back him up. He could make an argument that, you know what, I've been underpaid the last 3 years. And I guarantee you, Jones-Drew's saying that to some of his friends. New owner coming in talking about spending to the cap. They give Clint Session tens of millions of dollars of guaranteed money last year. That was obviously before Shad Khan came aboard. Jones-Drew could make an argument that he's been underpaid. And in the NFL, when you outperform your contract, you renegotiate for a new contract, folks. That's the way business is done. And you know what? If you don't think that's fair, that's just as fair as what happens on the other side. When you underperform, they cut you, and they don't owe you the rest of what's on that contract. So, I said it before on the show. It seems like I say it every day now. Where are the tears for David Garrard after he was cut last year, still being owed tens of millions of dollars from the 6-year, $60 million deal he signed? Where was the outraged cries of, hey, why is the organization not honoring this contract? They signed this guy. That is a contract. What kind of people are these? No, you didn't hear any of that. But now, shoes on the other foot, and Maurice Jones-Drew, he's a bad guy for what? Thinking he should be paid what he's worth?
Social gambler, who's this?
I mean, again, we're not talking about overpaying this guy.
All right, hang on.
We're not talking about putting the organization in a bad position. This is not NBA basketball where if you sign him to a 4-year, $40 million deal, you'll be stuck for all of that. Might I remind you, no guaranteed deals in the NFL. Teams can cut players whenever they want and not owe them the remainder of what's on their contract. That's why you see situations just like Maurice Jones-Drew unfold throughout the NFL every year. The reason they just don't unfold to this degree is because nobody would let their franchise player play for $4.5 million. I mean, it's a head-spinning situation. And the fact that the Jaguars, Shad Khan has gone public to alienate this guy, saying it's his decision. We've got 50 more guys under contract. I got news for you. About 45 of those guys are totally replaceable. You're not comparing Maurice Jones-Drew to the backup left guard. And if these training camp practices haven't shaken some sense into these guys, Blaine Gabbert 1 of 12 passing today. The receiving corps was being blamed for the passing game's failures his last 2 days. I know we're only in July. 4 practices under their belt now, and they've looked terrible in every one. The offense has. Gonna go to the phones now. We have Bobby on the line. Bobby, you're on the Social Gambler Radio Hour. How are you, my friend?
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
I was calling because I've been listening to you complain about Maurice Jones-Drew going for not getting his contract for about a week and a half now. And the dude's got 2 years left on his contract, and usually only quarterbacks and very elite players negotiate 2 years left on their contract.
But wait a second, Bobby. Maurice Jones-Drew, you say the very elite players. He leads the league in rushing. He's the definition of elite running back. I mean, he is elite.
He's an elite for his position, yes, but what has he shown the Jaguars? He hasn't got them to a playoff.
What has he shown the Jaguars? I mean, are you serious? Are you serious with that?
I'm serious. Has he got them to the playoffs?
Yes, Maurice Jones-Drew's played in the playoffs, absolutely. He played in their last playoff win over Pittsburgh.
And how long ago was that?
2007, I believe. Are you blaming the Jaguars' failures on Maurice Jones-Drew? Pete, get this guy out of here. I'm sorry. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I never do that. Hey, I encourage calls. If you've listened to this show, Bobby, you know I usually talk to people for 5 or 10 minutes. But if you're coming to me with what has he done for the Jaguars, if you're blaming the Jaguars' failures on this guy's been the only reason they've had any pulse. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on, man. I mean, hey, listen. I'll listen to opposing point of views all day long. My show yesterday took nothing but calls of people telling me, oh, you're wrong about this, you're dead wrong, you don't know what. That's fine. I get that I'm on the other side of this issue than most people. But if you're saying, what has Maurice Jones-Drew done for this team, and if you're going to try to take that to this whole, running back doesn't matter in the NFL anymore, folks, Mike Mularkey, this is no, revolutionary pass the ball over the field offense. Have you seen the Atlanta Falcons play for the last 2 years? Mike Mularkey runs a very traditional offense predicated on a power running game. I mean, the Jaguars are not going to become the New Orleans Saints. So for all these people who say, oh, running backs aren't important anymore, now the Jaguars are going to be built around Blaine Gabbert. Folks, Mike Mularkey's as traditional as they come offensively. I mean, this is not... Don't expect any fancy bells and whistles or something unlike you've seen before. As a matter of fact, the type of offense they're going to run is very, very similar to the type of offense they've been running. You don't believe me? Who did the Atlanta Falcons hire to replace Mike Mularkey as offensive coordinator? They hired Dirk Cutter, the Jaguars' offensive coordinator. So, I mean, the Falcons were looking for a Mularkey replacement, and they went with Jacksonville's offensive coordinator. Got Jerry on the line now. Jerry, you're on the Social Gambler Radio Hour. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. You've been ranting and raving.
I have, Jerry. I rant and rave.
You know what, though? I love him. I mean, like I said, he's the franchise. But you know what, though? Who's giving him the whole, everybody, the offensive line? The offensive linemen are the ones that have given him everything. And no one says anything about them. The offensive linemen are probably the least talked about people in football. Think about it.
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, Larry, Jerry. No doubt about that. Offensive, not only here in Jacksonville, but probably in all of organized football. Because, without a good offensive line, what's a good quarterback without a good offensive line?
Exactly. But I'm saying to myself, if it wasn't for the offensive line, I mean, they were stacked. I mean, everybody came up on the line. They knew they were going to run the ball. And give the offensive lineman credit. It wasn't all about mojo. It's the offensive lineman that gave him a chance to do what he's done. And you don't see them going, I want a new contract.
Well, I hear you. Well, first off, we'll have to pull up the offensive lineman's contract and see if they're paid what they're worth. I know Eugene Monroe, for example, and even Britton, they're paid more than they're worth. So I'm not sure if there are any contract issues to be had there. Jerry, I agree with your point about the offensive line being underappreciated, and there's no question that, listen, if I'm trying to make this sound like that I think it's all Maurice Jones-Drew, then I guess I'm getting my point across a little wrong here. I don't think
you are. I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
Right. I don't think Maurice Jones-Drew is Superman. I don't even think he's the best running back in the league. I do think he's one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the league. However, I think for the last 2 or 3 years, he has clearly been the best player on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And
What happened to the I think the Tennessee Titans, the Johnson guy?
Chris Johnson.
He held out, okay? And he was the best running back in the league. And what did he do last year? Did he overdo it or did he underdo it? I mean, he did not.
You're right. He had a bad year last year. My opinion, I guess, falls in line with most people. I think Chris Johnson's the type. It appeared to me that he's got paid now. He got his money, so he no longer has to sort of do his thing.
Okay, so that's what I'm worried about with mojo. Okay.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a legitimate concern. Yeah, if that's what you're concerned about, if you think that, maybe he's the type of guy to where once he gets paid, he won't be running quite as hard. Yeah, I understand that concern, and maybe that's the case. Maybe once Jones-Drew gets paid, maybe he won't.
It bothers me when someone says he overdid his contract. I'm going, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to do the best he possibly can. So
you're right about that. But reality in the NFL, I mean, not only here in Jacksonville, but everywhere, and that's the reality of non-guaranteed contracts. I hate to keep going on about this because both you guys are right. I have been talking about this for about a week. But, see, when the company is not required to pay, when they're not required to honor the contract, see, I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. You can't compare this to most jobs because most jobs, when you sign a contract, if you get fired, there's some sort of severance package you get. That's all written into the contract. If not, if someone tries to fire you with nothing and without cause, you've got a court case on your hands. So, but because of the collective bargaining in the NFL, it's not like that. They can fire you, they can cut you at any time, and not owe you a penny of what remains on your contract. That's why all these guys, there's such an urgency to be paid what they're worth. And again, I'm sure this is Maurice Jones-Drew big bone to pick here because it's not like he's been overpaid. A lot of Jacksonville fans that I've heard over the last week talk about, well, this guy was overpaid for 3 years. The contract was front-loaded. Well, it was front-loaded, meaning there was more money up front than in the back end, but that money up front, the $21 million over 3 years, that's what he's worth. That's not overpaying him. $7 million a year. That puts him right in there with the guys of his class. And so, he's been paid what he's worth. Now the contract's going to pay him less. And so the natural thing to do here would be to renegotiate. Jaguars give him a new 4-year deal. And after 2 years, when he's 29 years old, if they think they're going to get diminishing returns, cut him. And you don't owe him the back end of the 2 year you don't owe him the last 2 years on the deal. I mean, this is standard operating procedure around the NFL.
So the bottom line is, if you're the owner of the Jaguars, you would do what you just said. you would go ahead and pay him more money right now, flat out. He's got 2 years left in his contract. You, being the owner, you would do this.
Well, after making public statements like Shad Khan made and painting myself into a corner, I wouldn't do it anymore, because now, he would just look sort of dumb after saying last week in the paper. However, I would like to think that if I were the owner, I mean, who knows, to put yourself in the shoes of a billionaire, who knows. But I would like to think if I were the owner, I would have done like so many other franchises do in the NFL and taken care of my star player, taken care of my franchise player long before it ever came to this. I mean, again, this is not a unique situation in the NFL. What's going on right now with Jones Drew's contract?
I wouldn't say it's a unique situation, but the bottom line is he's got 2 years left. If he would have waited till next year, 1 year left, I got his back. You know what, though?
But Jerry, you know what? They wouldn't pay him next year. You know what? The longer he waits, Maurice Jones-Drew knows he's 27 years old. What do you always hear about running backs as soon as they hit 30? Steep decline. That's right. That's what everybody says. And so when his contract's up, he's going to be 29. Next year, he'll be 28. You know, when you look at great Hall of Fame running backs, when you look at their statistics throughout their career, their most productive years, 26, 27, 28. I mean, and Maurice Jones-Drew's 27. So right now, he is in the midst of his most productive time. And he knows that. So next year, we're going to be getting Maurice Jones-Drew in his prime, at his best, and he just wants to be paid like it. I mean, and again, it's not like, I guess I'm defending Maurice Jones-Drew too much here. It's not like I'm all for camp holdouts. You're right. I think Maurice Jones-Drew would be a better guy or a better teammate if he didn't hold out. I'm sure there are some guys on the team, maybe offensive linemen like you're talking about, some guys on the team who are better soldiers, better teammates, who wouldn't hold out. What I'm saying here is I find the organization more at fault for this situation than Maurice Jones-Drew himself. I can't believe that an organization like the Jaguars, dismal as we have been, we're talking about our face of the franchise, our most relevant player, our most known player, and our best player, who's going to be grossly underpaid, and you're not handling this. I mean,
he's not grossly underpaid.
Oh, okay, from NFL standards, obviously.
Right now,
Jerry, obviously he makes more money than you and I make, I understand.
Right now, he's the 8th highest paid running back right now.
Oh, okay, Jerry. He'll be making $4.5 million. He'll be making $4.5 million this coming year. That is roughly half of what got
highest in the lowest.
Okay, Jerry, just a second now. He's going to make $4.5 million this coming year. That is roughly half of what guys like LaShawn McCoy, D'Angelo Williams, Steven Jackson, Matt Ford. Oh, Jerry, are you kidding me? Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Wait a second. This guy, Maurice Jones-Drew, he's set for life. He's already made $21 million. I mean, I'm not crying any tears for this guy in his poverty situation. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying here, this is NFL football. These guys are being paid millions, tens of millions of dollars. I mean, if you're going to bring in a receiver who's been on 5 teams, who's been a number 3 receiver for his entire career, and give him 5 years, $31 million. Compared to that, yes, Maurice Jones-Drew is grossly underpaid. And by the way, I was in favor of them bringing in Laurent Robinson. I was happy when they did that because they hadn't brought in anybody else, and we needed some new receivers. So it's not like I'm against Laurent Robinson. I just, Anyway, Jerry, we do have to go to a break now. Hey, man, I really appreciate your call.
Hey, man, I love you.
You don't think we have to go to a break? I promise we do. We'll be right back with more of the Social Gambler Radio Hour.
Check out some of the great things.
Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnette. Good to have you with us. Get a little worked up in the last segment. I'm going to do my best not to talk about this Maurice Jones-Drew subject. I have beat a dead horse here. Both those callers sort of mentioned that I have been talking about it for quite a while. It's a very valid point. It's just that it is the top story of Jaguar training camp, and I feel like I'm the lone person on this side, the side that I deem right. And again, it's not that I endorse holdouts. It's just I think what management is doing in Jacksonville is worse than what Maurice Jones-Drew, not taking care of this guy, the face of your franchise, your best player, not paying him what he's worth. Forget overpaying him. But anyway, I've made the point till I'm blue in the face. We'll move on to something else. Do have to let you know we're brought to you by thesocialgambler.com. your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Plenty of free content on the Social Gambler today, as always. There's also an app for your smartphone, so be sure to check them out. thesocialgambler.com. Tragic news today, not sure if you heard it. Tennessee Titans reserve wide receiver O.J. Murdoch, found inside his car with a self-inflicted gunshot wound outside his former high school in Tampa, Florida. Went to Middleton High School in Tampa. Was originally recruited by South Carolina back in 2005. Only appeared in 4 games for the Gamecocks. Finished his collegiate career at Fort Hays State in Texas. Was picked up before last season, undrafted rookie by the Titans. Spent all last year on IR with an Achilles injury. But again, O.J. Murdoch tragically committed suicide today. Wanted to pass that along. In other less grim news, don't know if you heard, but over the weekend, Orlando Magic hired a new head coach, 37-year-old Jacques Vaughn. Now, Jacques Vaughn had a long pro career with several teams, but he's most remembered, at least to me, I remember him most playing point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks. He was an excellent point guard in college. Didn't shoot quite well enough from the outside for his game to really translate to the NBA. Sort of like Mateen Cleaves, former Michigan State point guard in that way. But Jacques Vaughn, 37 years old, new head coach to Orlando Magic. Real youth movement down there in Orlando. Rob Hennigan, the GM who hired Vaughn, he's only 30. So there, 30. Now that's how old I am. So the last caller asked me to put myself in the shoes of Shad Khan. Well, I might not be able to put myself in the shoes of a billionaire with a curled up mustache. I guess I could put myself in the shoes of an NBA general manager. Tell you what, for Rob Hennigan, this Dwight Howard situation, really delicate. And the first thing that he handles as a general manager, really, no matter which way it works out, it's going to be tough for him to come out looking good on it. We're about out of time now. See, didn't hardly have any time coming back from the break because we talked right through the other break, and then when I told the caller we had to go to break, he chuckled at me like I was full of it. So there, Jerry, you see, I'm an honest man. We had to go to break. Break was long overdue. Anyway, we'll talk more Maurice Jones-Drew holdout tomorrow. Only kidding. We'll try to get to something different tomorrow at 4 o'clock with more of the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Have a good one, folks.